Well, at 8:09, we welcome in another great guest here this morning, Mason County Commissioner Kevin Shutty. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. How are you guys?
Good.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Great weather week on tap.
Yeah, for
Man,
sure.
time to clear the schedule.
Real
I
nice.
know it.
And definitely time to get out there and have a picnic, as it's picnic day for sure. First things first, we're going to be talking about the lagoon that is in the conversation around the community, but that Traveler 5.5K this past weekend, that was a wonderful event.
Yeah, great event highlighting Union and Mason County and the canal. Carrie and Jeff from Hood Canal Events put on a great 5.5K benefiting the Great Bend Center for Music. I know you had Matthew and Drew in last week to talk about that organization. Really excited and happy to be involved with that. So just a great day for spreading community spirit. And we had folks from as far away as Seattle. And I know you had had a little bit of a win to celebrate in your house over the weekend,
Stephanie
too.
was the first place female runner on that thing.
I was so proud
Couldn't
of her.
believe it.
That's amazing.
27
I
minutes
love
and
that.
something.
Yeah.
She was pretty proud of herself, and rightly so. She runs hard and fast, so that's fun. Good for her.
Exciting.
It was also a nice day. We saw the Traveler out there, and the environment, of course, is key to a lot of folks here in Mason County. And there's been recent conversations about and stop me at any point where I get this wrong, because I know it's very, there's a lot of definitions and proper wording to these things, but essentially a septic lagoon kind of in the northern part of the Mason County area. Tell me a little bit about the backstory on this, where we're at now, and then we'll talk about some of the concerns that we're hearing. Sure.
Well, this has been a issue that's been kind of front and center for me in District 2 for the past several weeks. The Department of Ecology, the State Department of Ecology oversees facilities like the one that is on Webb Hill Road out in Union, out in my neck of the woods, which is a biosolids recycling facility. And that's a fancy way of saying that when you get your septic tank, or you know, like we had at the Traveler 5.5K this weekend, the porta potties, when all those things get pumped, they go to one of two places. They can go to a wastewater treatment facility, like the one here in Shelton, or they can go to a biosolids recycling facility like the one that's being operated and has been in operation for more than 30 years out on Webb Hill. So folks that are from that area and have lived there for a long time know that this is not a new facility, and these are all overseen and regulated, permitted, etc. by the State Department of Ecology, and they're permitted every 5 years. And so what we're not going through here is we're not talking about whether or not they should have their operational permit. We're talking about something very different. So when they went through their last permitting process with the state a couple of years ago, the state came forward and said, look, we recognize that there are some higher level of nitrates in the ground that we've been testing. They oversee all of that. And they said you need to do some mitigation in order to help improve water quality. And so the state came forward and made some recommendations to the facility there, one of which is a holding lagoon that they would be able to store treated wastewater during the winter and rainy months. And so typically what happens is, and what has been happening up until this past winter, is they'll receive the waste products, treat them in their facility so that they're to I believe a Class B treatment, which is you know, similar to what happens to the water at a wastewater facility plant like here in Shelton. And then they would apply it to their fields where they grow grass and alfalfa. As you can imagine, that's some pretty good grown grass and alfalfa. But you know, it's a serious thing when we start talking about, you know, kind of what's getting into the groundwater and what kind of measures and steps are we taking in order to, you know, protect water quality. And so ecology said, you know, if you don't apply it during those winter and rainy months, it'll help protect water quality. It'll help protect the natural resources. And so one of the things that they could do, and what they've opted to do, is build a septic lagoon. So it's a pretty extensive undertaking, and the county has very little, if any, say in whether or not this happens. And so what we do is we work as a kind of a conduit between people in our community, and then the State Department of Ecology, who essentially issues the overall permit for projects like this. We have a small piece of it for grading, which is just digging a hole. So, you know, if you put a pool in, or, you know, you have a project like you see out with Shelton Hills, they're doing some grading, it's moving dirt. You know, but the overall environmental, you know, overarching permit is handled by the State Department of Ecology. And so we've been receiving a lot of comment. There's a state law indicates how long you have to receive public comment for. We've worked hard with the Department of Ecology and the property owners, the facility owner and operator. We've nearly doubled the amount of public comment period that's required by state law. So I'm happy to say that we have done everything we can in order to encourage more comment from the people that live in this area and people who have concerns. So that comment period is coming to a close. I believe it ended yesterday, but like I said, nearly doubled it. One of the other things that I was able to do when this came up most recently has been I sent a letter to the Department of Ecology with a number of questions about whether or not this facility would improve and protect water quality. And so grateful to Ecology. They came in and did a presentation for the County Commission. We received public comment at that. We weren't required to receive public comment at that, but we thought it was appropriate to allow people to kind of voice their opinions and concerns, so that both the facility owner and operator and the Department of Ecology were there to hear those as well.
Oh,
so
that's good.
Yeah. So we've tried to really, as much as we can, is kind of being the middleman here, you know, to try and facilitate the appropriate conversation between the state and the residents who have concerns.
That's good.
So this has been going on in some sort of a fashion or another for 3 decades, you say 30 years. How different would it look if the lagoon came into the area? And are most of the comments coming from the surrounding neighbors, or is it people who are hearing bits and pieces of the conversation from outside of outer portions of Mason County?
I've heard a lot from folks in Union, as you can imagine. That, you know, it's kind of the, you know, where the facility's located. So they have, you know, they were the sort of the first wave of concerns that we heard, and then a lot of folks from the Lake Limerick, Cranberry Lake area. Part of the presentation shows that if in an absolute worst case scenario, if the lagoon fails, that just based on sort of the geography, you know, that several miles away, Lake Limerick might have some sort of an impact via Cranberry Lake. So heard a lot from folks out there, received a number of petitions, but ultimately, you know, what we do is we have to pass those on to the Department of Ecology.
Sure.
One of the things that I also asked our staff at the county and the Department of Ecology to provide would be some alternatives. If this particular project didn't go through, what would happen either during the rainy months and during winter, or if the facility itself went away, what should we expect? And they came back and they said there were a couple of options. One, this gets permitted and they hold the treated wastewater for the rainy months and then apply it as they normally would during the summer. Another option would be to use Shelton's wastewater treatment facility. I don't know what their capability or willingness would be to do that, but there certainly would be a cost involved there. Or upgrading the Belfair sewage plant, which, talking to our staff, would be a tremendous cost because it wasn't designed to take this type of wastewater, as well as the infrastructure around it. So the roads weren't built to handle septic trucks and, you know, that kind of thing day in and day out like we have there. And then, you know, finally, and this was a real concern, was individual septic pumpers could then go through a similar permitting process and have their own sort of mini North Ranch facility of their own. And so what we have here is we have one facility that does it for, multiple areas. We have over 26,000 septic tanks in Mason County alone. So imagine multiple spray fields similar to this one and the permitting that would have to go along with that. Ultimately, according to our staff, if this doesn't go through, individual homeowners with septics could be looking at up to $1,000 to pump their septic tank, which is a considerable cost.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
And so, I was surprised to hear that. That's a pretty significant jump. And what happens to water quality and septic maintenance when it becomes unaffordable to take care of your home system, People won't pump it as regularly. People won't get it inspected. We have a requirement in law how often they need to be inspected. People will start to forego that because of the cost, and then we have some serious concerns then about what happens in with those systems in terms of sort of the broader ecosystem. So as we go through this, we'll learn more here this week as to what next steps are from the Department of Ecology, and I encourage folks to hop on our website. We have the presentations there. Do appreciate the outpouring of concern from the community, and I've done my very best to communicate directly with everybody who's contacted my office. Please don't stop doing that. Even though the public comment period is closing, it's important that I continue to hear from people on that. And ultimately, we're going to continue to work, whether this is permitted or not, through the Department of Ecology. I take water quality and natural resource protection very seriously. I serve on the Hood Canal Coordinating Council, a member of the Alliance for a Healthy South Sound. I do a lot of work in my job as a commissioner to make sure that we have safe, healthy drinking water for our community, and whether this is permitted or not, that's not going to stop.
Oh, that's nice.
So when it comes to comments into ecology, you mentioned that the county doesn't have a heck of a lot of say, but a lot of the public input does. Are there still, though, the Mason County Board of County Commissioners recommendation to ecology? We've heard from enough people that we feel this way, and obviously you're going to make your own decision, but we live here. We're the ones who are doing the laws here. So is that?
Yeah, I think we're going to go back and have a conversation with our staff. I'm not sure what had happened in the past. Again, this was like I said, the last time this was permitted was in 2015, and this is through that permitting process is what led to them having to make these improvements and do this mitigation. So I'll go back and look at what has happened here historically when permitting issues like this have come up. What we want to do is we want to make sure that we're following the law and we're following the state policies that govern appropriate comment and that kind of thing, and make sure that we're adhering to that. So that's first and foremost, but we'll continue to work with staff to make sure that we're getting the information out in a timely manner, and that we're doing what we can to facilitate the conversation between them and the state regulators.
All right. Well, Mason County Commissioner Kevin Shutty is in the 2nd District in the county, and that covers a lot of this area for this news. You can also go to co.mason.wa.us. We'll put the links in the show notes, and there you can find under the What's New area from April 10, 3 links to presentations on this project. Commissioner Shutty, thank you.
Thank you.
Let you
Great
go,
to be here.
Set up shop. He'll be here tomorrow morning as well to talk about those economic opportunity zones with Andy Arness from the city of Shelton. So I think he's just going to bunk here tonight.
That's right. Yeah, yeah. You got a couch out there. We'll just make it up.
We'll show you how to make the coffee so it's ready for us.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.